how basically Salto Youth website looks like, because this activity is part of this toolbox. So you see here that we are on the Salto YouthNet web page, where you have many different tools for youth work, but other activities, like not just the youth work. Here you have a toolbox for training, and here is our audit, which we call like my environmentally friendly actions. You can always like read what is it about. For this activity, we focus on thinking about our attitudes, behaviors, habits, but also knowledge. And here is explain how you like what is the aim of the tool. It's described, and you can also download it. So just that you know that this Salto, I think, is very, I think, nice. It's clear, and you have access to different tools. So that was a bit about the like how it looks on Salto. And now I will go a little bit more to the audit itself. Just please give me a second so I can switch again to present mode. So I mentioned it that it is an activity which makes you reflect on your habits, knowledge, attitudes. And this activity tackle different areas of the, let's say, or living. And I can now ask Marta. Marta, how did you decide about the different areas? Why did you? Because we talk about this audit about transportation, meal, building awareness. We have also some topic regard, for example, questions regarding like cleaning. How did you make the decision which areas to cover?
Yeah, so you're right now already, you went to the, how do you say it? My environmentally friendly actions, right?
Yeah.
I created the individual one, and you have the audit that is more broader, right? I basically thought of all these aspects that we as human beings basically like where we create some impact or influence with something like these areas. And actually, meanwhile I was creating the board game, I also simultaneously came up with these kind of ideas or questions that could be part of what is environmentally friendly or not, because it is a constant discussion. So yeah, I covered like nutrition, I covered personal hygiene, household maintenance, wardrobe, waste management, right? Transport and travel, like hobbies, also attitudes towards nature, and and what we do on a community level. And also my idea was more not like to create a self-judgment of things that you can either you do or you don't do, but more like reflect, like there are like over 130 questions that are just yes or no, and basically each time you put a no, like come back to it again and see if it's actually relevant for you, and would you like to change something about it? Are there any ways to change it? And basically it's as simple as, basically, if action doesn't have any personal meaning to you, it won't change anything. So like why in some ways you in some areas you care more and in some less. So I, for example, don't make my own cleaning products. I don't, but some people do that, and they should be celebrated for that, because that makes sense for them, you know, in that way. Or I don't grow my own food, but I don't have a garden available to do that. Like, but what could I do for that? Like, there is a second question, like maybe I could check out the community gardens around. So maybe I could do something about it, because it's important for me, and you know, like in that way. Yeah, so it's more like a self-reflection, and I don't think I covered everything, but I tried to be as wide as possible. So it's basically reflecting on your own attitudes, behavior, habits, knowledge, and the lifestyle, but in a way, technically how relevant it is to you personally. It's not like somebody will come and judge you for that. It's just like a little assessment and then maybe some action will follow. And it's also about how you try to get engaged in community activities that are tended towards environmental sustainability. Like, do you participate in some activities that municipality creates? Do you suggest them, or do you actually basically just write petitions or something? Because some people find some meaning in that. So like it's all like kind of liberal, I would say. That's the idea. Yeah.
I think it's very nice because it really has many questions which make you think about different areas of your life. And how I say, there is no like judgment. Also for me, what I realize is that you can see how sometimes when we live in different places, let's say the conditions are different and maybe you have different habits. I can just say that when we were, for example, doing this activity in Georgia, and there were people like, for example, from Serbia, and we spoke about travel, how different it was that they say, okay, if in the country would have been train, I would travel by train, but we basically doesn't have almost any trains. And I think that also it was for me this reflection how our own habits can change based on our environment. How I have a different habits when I travel, how I have different habits, for example, if I'm on holidays. And it made me realize that, what I could change, how I can change it. And I think that some of the changes are possible, but I also believe that for some of the changes, you need to have also a little bit of structure around you. That's, for example, I don't know if you had the same feeling when we were in Georgia and we talk about separating the rubbish for plastic paper. And after you see that in the city, or they were also sharing with us that in the region, there is no separation, so how to approach it. But of course, I think it's very good to go through it and see.
Yeah.
And for example, for me, it was also this very interesting to think how I can change it in different settings. For example, like an individual, if I can, I don't know, have a compost at home, or also what we can do like an organization. Like it can be, I think, used like a little bit if you want to change some habits in your organization, or even it could give you idea if the projects can be done a little bit differently, because there are also questions which can be used regarding the transport, or also about the for food, like waste and food. And you can have to maybe discuss with your colleagues or with the participants of your future projects, even if you have a, let's say, break during the project, if you will eat the apples from the, let's say, local, or we will, I don't know, have apples in Czech Republic. I think all the apples are from Morocco or Spain, maybe some from Poland. Honestly, I'm not really sure now. Or what does it if we all do vegetarian diet? Because I noticed that some of the projects, they go, for example, now fully vegetarian. And I also know that some of the participants on the other side are not welcoming without any judgment. Like they are used to have like meat as part of their meals. And so I think it's very nice to think how we kind of approach some stuff. For me, it was big realization, for example, about leftovers. And I think that we really try in my household to limit leftovers. But I was really thinking how less we can really reduce, and also to bring a little bit more planning in my, for example, cooking, that there is not so much leftovers, because it's food which is basically getting wasted. And the last part, I also recommended, like when Marta was saying about that we can be also, let's say, active in different ways. I think it's also nice to see how you, like a group, individual, organization, try to support this raising awareness about different topics. And I don't mean that we all need to deliver workshops or trainings about all the issues, but about the issue which is really important for us. I think it's like really nice to raise awareness about it. So this, I think, is more on the individual level. It gives you the idea what are your habits, what your knowledge. And after, during the project, we jumped to other level. When we try to see it a bit, let's say, more from like larger perspective. And we started to ask our participants about their cities, communities, or let's say villages. There is a question if you can guess the city and you see that it has a church, public hall, park, nightclub, shopping mall, and hospital, kindergarten, which is, I think, mostly like millions of other cities. But this city is from Georgia, and it is connected with the activity which is about, like, before it was, let's say, personal audit. This is about like audit of cities and organization. When you are being asked like about thinking about your environment, like there, about different aspects, and see it like also with more like with connections. And it can be done that people who work in the groups, for example, here was a Georgian group. This is the Macedonian mapping of the Macedonian capital Skopje. When they are like being asked to think about, like, if we speak, let's say, about environment sustainability, to think about the issues. For example, Macedonian group wrote that the biggest issue is the transport, because the public transport is not working. Waste, because it's really issue with waste separation. There is a lack of like rubbish bins for plastic, glass. Also like urban spaces that they are not really maintained. And now the question is like, who is kind of responsible for what? Who is impacting like the decision? For example, if I want to have a better separate waste, where I should interfere. So the activity, it's about mapping the issues, but also mapping the relationships like around us. And one of the aim of the activity is to, for me, like, it's to realize that many times we are not really alone, that there are some people which have maybe similar interests or wishes. So it's also very important to kind of connect with them. And another thing is that at the end, if you want some change, very often it's important to take some decision. Somebody needs to take the decision, and this is the decision makers. And it's important to understand who are the decision makers and maybe how we can impact them to talk about the issues. Or Marta mentioned that some people also write petitions and that they want to change. Here you have also how the activity looks in practice. You see that people are going again through the series of questions and they are discussing and answering. For example, here, there are people from Ukraine, North Macedonia, Serbia, which shares the perspectives, different ones. Here we have a team Armenia and Latvia. And I think if you do it on an international level, it also kind of gives you inspiration, because you see that in some countries, it works differently, or not even in countries like cities, villages, and maybe you can see how something could be a transfer. And when you do this audit, which you can after, let's say, download it and try it, another step can be that when you discuss all the different points is that the participants can really write, for example, on a piece of paper, post-it notes, some issues which they would like to discuss with each another. So you see that during our activity, this activity was in the Czech Republic, I forget to mention, for example, was this questions like how to involve students into ecological projects, or that the lack of efficient public transport. That means that people travel mostly by cars, or like how to change people awareness about climate changes. And that was also one of the issues, I think, which was repeating during our project, that more participants were mentioning that very often people maybe have a low awareness about it, but also that they are dealing with other issues. So for them, it is not the most actual environment and sustainability. Yeah, and here is like a little bit inside how it looks like. This is just a bit sum up. Here we have the individual assessments, how we talked before. And yeah, that I jumped a little bit too early, but like here you have like just also to see that basically all the tools which we are discussing is very simple, and you can download them and use them.